creating training materials is hard because it's hard to translate expertise into a training experience that it can be self-driven. You can't just take the PowerPoint from the teachers and put them online. They're not enough. Many of the early challenges of startup we have not had. I think that comes with experience. We don't make a lot of mistakes. So the challenge has been really scaling our sales, scaling our demand. If the course, however time it is, if it's 1 hour for you and 3 months for me, but we're learning the same, that is what the goal is. And the best way to achieve that is to personalize the education. So AI will continue to play a pivotal role in personalizing the education.
Hi everybody, welcome to the Devico Breakfast Bar. Here we speak with different people involved in the business landscape, share their expertise, delve into the latest tech trends, and explore the ins and outs of IT outsourcing. I'm Oleg Sadikov, and today I'm excited to have Luis Garcia, president and co-founder of PT Learning. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss new episodes. Hi Luis.
Thank you for having me, Oleg.
Let's start our podcast with a little blitz. I start a sentence and you continue.
Okay.
Entrepreneurship gave me
headaches.
Entrepreneurship deprived me
Asleep.
My main superpower is
focus.
My main weakness is
focus.
When I'm afraid I
work harder.
Can you share your journey from your early days in the business world to co-founding PT Learning?
So I started my career as an engineer. I'm a software engineer by training. So this is in the 90s. So I've been around for a while. Back then, it was a very exciting time. Just like today, instead of startups, the first technology startups, the dot-coms were coming along. So I was part of that journey here in the United States as a software engineer. I worked for several startups. One of them actually went public. And then that dot-com boom actually ended up in the bust. So I found myself looking for a more stable job. And I got hired by my alma mater, Full Sail University here in Florida, to help them build an online university, which I had no idea how to do. But they hired me and they thought that I came from a background of product development in web. So they thought that somehow that qualified me to build an online university. And I'm glad they did. I came in and did what engineers do. I say, well, okay, let me run some pilots and gather some data and make some decisions. So we ran some pilots for a couple of years. And then I thought that I had a handle on what needed to be done. I designed the first learning management system for the university. And I started launching online degree programs. Little did we know that was going to be incredibly successful and turn into one of the fastest growing online universities in the US at the time. So in just a couple of years, we had 5,000 online students, which was the same population of in-campus students that we had, which took over 30 years to build that student population. We did it in a couple of years in the online version. A couple of years later, we had 12,000 degree-seeking students online. We had generated over 1,000 jobs and had over 35 programs online. So it was incredibly successful, but also gave me the access to the challenges of implementing digital education at scale. So two of the biggest problems were, first, how do you create educational materials that effectively train? Creating training materials is hard because it's hard to translate expertise into a training experience that it can be self-driven. You can't just take the PowerPoint from the teachers and put them online. They're not enough. So we solved that problem by having a very large department of content developers and instructional designers and all that. That's one problem. And the second problem was, how do you do evaluation of learning? In other words, how do you know your learners actually learned? You can have a handful of learners and you can run some tests, you can ask them some questions, you can run them through some situations. How do you do that when you have 10,000? So those are the two problems that we faced and in digital education in general face. I end up staying in the university 19 years, so I have a lot of experience in different kinds of educational programs at all levels. And then a few years ago, I left to go back to startups like I was earlier in my career. My co-founder had a similar problem in his company that grew very fast. And he thought, I would just create some courses to get people, they had acquired some companies, needed to integrate new people. And they faced the problem that I knew he was going to face, which is creating courses is really hard. And evaluating their learning is really difficult. So when he left that company, which was very successful, was a unicorn, a very successful startup, we joined forces to create PETE to solve those two problems and apply them directly in workforce learning for small and medium-sized businesses.
You have a strong background in international business. What were some of the key lessons you have learned from working in different cultures and business environments?
That's a great question, actually. And today I still feel that half of our team is actually around the world. So we constantly challenge with the differences in culture. Even though for me, I'm already a different culture because I'm not originally from America either. I'm South American. But I've been in the United States longer than I've been anywhere else. So for all intents and purposes, the way I express myself is very American. And even recently, with one of my new employees from South Africa, I wrote something on Slack that was not received with the intention that I had, because of the weight of the words is different everywhere. So I think that one of the things that people have to keep in mind is that even though you could be speaking English, the way expressions work may be taken differently in different places. So you have to be very aware of being neutral, that not use a lot of slang, that not use expressions that are just Americans and not anywhere else. The other part is that our customs, our values are very different in America and in other places. We tend to work all the time here. We don't really turn off. I work 7 days a week. If you write me a text at 9 p.m., I'm likely going to answer it. Where another sides of the world, people tend to break, take time, take vacations, things like that. And I think from that point of view, we have a lot to learn from other cultures. I think the other part is that Americans tend to be very
hardworking.
Yeah, I already said that, but also very focused. You don't have to do a lot of follow-up when you tell somebody to do something in America. In other parts of the world, sometimes they consider a task completed when by American standards it's not completed. So you have to do more follow-up sometimes. It has nothing to do with capability, nothing to do with ability to do the task. It's just cultural. Sometimes you think, I work in places where starting the task is good enough to say that the task is done. When in America, when you say the task is done, it's actually done. Those are three things that I have encountered when working with all cultures.
You became the youngest professor at Universidad Metropolitana at just 22. Pretty awesome, 22.
Yeah, thank you. It's so fun that you actually read that. It is true. I was a very young professor. I actually love to teach. I didn't know that I was going to have a career in education later in my career. I was a teaching assistant for a part of my tenure at school and then became a professor very young. But I did it while I was waiting to leave to the United States to continue my studies. Little did I know that many, many years later, I was going to have a career in education. Even though when I worked at university, I never taught. But being around academia has been kind of part of my life, my whole life. I didn't plan for it, but I really love it.
What were some of the biggest challenges you have faced while building Pete Learning?
Startups are hard, and most of startups actually fail. They fail because they can't get product fit. You can't get anybody to buy your product. If you need people around you, you need to pay those people. You need to raise some money to do that. I think we've been very lucky in that we have found a market that was not served well, and we had a product very early. We had revenue from the very beginning. Because I have a co-founder that has multiple exits, it was relatively easy for us to raise money. I will say that many of the early challenges of a startup we have not had. We haven't had the need to pivot in either. We chose a place that we knew was going to work. I think that comes with experience. We don't make a lot of mistakes, and that's very good. So the challenge has been really scaling our sales, scaling our demand. Because the first year, most of our customers were people we knew, forever grateful to them, and that gave us the foundation that we were able to find other customers and raise money because we had some income coming in. But graduating from founders-led sales, like me and my partner, calling people that we know and getting them to adopt our solution, from having marketing machine generating leads that then are picked up by a sales department that they go out and show the software and get a customer. That has been the hardest part. I think we're doing really well. Today, most of our leads, over 95% of our leads come from inbound. Over 90% of our sales are done by our sales department. But that has been the hardest.
I could go back and give younger self one piece of advice before starting Pete Learning. What would it be?
I should have started earlier, I think. I spent 19 years at the university.
You must be around.
Yeah, and it was a great job. I got to see my children grow up. I didn't have to travel. And I have a great career. I'm very grateful for it. But I feel like I should have left earlier and come back into the startups earlier. So I would tell myself, don't spend 19 years there, not because you're ungrateful, but because there's more that you can do outside.
What are the biggest challenges in implementing AI into learning platforms?
But it's very new technology, right? And so we have a proprietary technology that orchestrates among different models for writing, for voice. We implementing also avatars into creating a learning experience. The random nature of using these kinds of models becomes a challenge in trying to get predictable results. So I would say that that's why you have to have a very good team that can adapt. These technologies, large language models, are evolving very, very quickly too. So you have to be very adaptable, and you have to keep enough technology to yourself so you're not depending on them, but also leveraging as much as you can from them so you don't have to develop things unnecessarily. Those two are the challenges, is the random nature of getting predictable results and also how fast it changes.
One concern with AI in education is that it may lack human touch. How does Pete balance AI automation with human interaction?
We do it because there's always a human in the loop. We are an assistive technology in the sense that the expert is the one in charge, is the one in the driving seat. Let's put it this way. If you're an expert and you wanted to turn your expertise into a course, the best way to do that is to hire an instructional designer that will try to translate that expertise into a learning experience. That's what Pete does. It works with the expert to turn that expertise into a learning experience. In essence, it automates the process of instructional design. So to that extent, the human is in control. The course doesn't go directly to the learner. It still goes through a process of writing and editing like any other course. It's just a lot faster. So until that's approved, it's not in front of a learner. And so it's not really, it's enhancing the expert, it's not really replacing it.
Where do you see the future of AI in education and workforce training going?
So PEAT stands for Personalized Education, Training, and Enrichment. This personalized portion is, I think, where we'll continue to go. How do we create courses and experiences that are more and more personalized to the learner so that the learner can, for example, go faster in things that are easy for them to absorb and understand and master, and go slower or for different angles and different ways to engage the learner when it is difficult. So we are very much in trying to break time out of the learning equation. We think about learning a lot in terms of time. This is an hour course. This is a one semester course, a 1 year course. It really, the time doesn't really matter. What matters is how much you learn. So taking time away and then do it about, okay, if the course, however time it is, if it is 1 hour for you and 3 months for me, but we're learning the same, that is what the goal is. And the best way to achieve that is to personalize the education. So AI will continue to play a pivotal role in personalizing the education because it's impossible to do otherwise.
You have built and led teams across different industries. What are the key factors that make a team truly high performing?
Teams are people, and people are motivated by different things. One thing that I don't kid myself on thinking is that somehow I am a motivator. I don't like to think of myself as that, and I don't try to motivate people. I do try to hire people that are motivated themselves. So I always go to this principle: if I hire a motivated person and give them what they need and get out of the way, they're going to do what they need to do, and they're going to take us to good places. So that's what I try to do, regardless of the culture, regardless of the team, is just treat people with respect, with empathy, and trust them, give them what they need, and get out of the way.
What are your thoughts on the advantages or disadvantages of IT outsourcing?
So any outsourcing, I've done several ways, has to be thought as an extension of your team. So the first mistake when people outsource is to think, I'm just going to give it to somebody else so I can forget about it. And that's a mistake. Usually you outsource an expertise that you don't have, or an augmentation of something that you're falling short with. But you still have to think of them as your team. So if you do that, then you're more likely to succeed in your outsourcing. Depending on how the economical model of the outsourcing works, sometimes the outsourcing as you grow becomes more expensive than doing it internal. So you have to be very aware, and I like to draw these two lines, is like outsourcing is cheaper to start, but more expensive to scale. And insourcing is expensive to start because you got to hire people and all that, but cheaper to scale. So the curve goes a little bit like this, outsourcing goes more like that. There's a point in which those two curves meet. Is the point at which outsourcing is more expensive than insourcing. If you understand that point, the best way to do is that before you get to that point, you start insourcing and replacing the outsource with the insource. So by the time you get to that point, you already have your team, it's already ready to go. You get rid of the outsourcing, and now it's all inside your own operation. Many times it makes sense. Sometimes it doesn't make sense. It makes sense to always be outsourced because the outsource is fixed, the cost is fixed. I need to have it in your own team, and then just keep it like that way. Gotta be aware of that. If it's gonna be expensive to scale, make plans to insource. Number two, always treat it as it's part of your team.
How do you see the role of IT outsourcing evolving in the tech industry, especially with advancements and automation in AI?
We used to think about outsourcing when the resources were outside of your premise. But today, like Peer, for instance, all of the resources are outside the premise because we're a remote organization. So it's an interesting thing to think about outsourcing, insourcing in those terms, because even though we're based in Orlando, Florida, and about a third of our employees are here, 2/3 of them are not here, and they're actually around the world. So is that outsourcing? And it is not. It's actually, they're all part of our team, but there's a lot of contractors and part-time people, and it's incredible that you can have that because you can have a lot of great talent for cheaper than you will have in the US, and they're just as good in many cases. It's hard to find them, but if you find them, keep them, and they're great. So I think that's transforming the notion of how we think about outsourcing, because I don't think it can be thought the same way. They really resources that just happen not to be in the office with you. But we don't have an office. Well, we do have an office, but it's more like a meeting place.
As we wrap up our conversation, what advice would you give to companies considering IT outsourcing but concerned about losing their control over technology projects?
I would say that get rid of very old school thoughts, because it's not like that anymore. In technology projects today, you're likely going to be working with remote people, even if they're your own employees. Whether you're in Orlando and the person is in Boston or Atlanta or in the Ukraine or in the Philippines, it doesn't really matter. You still will have to have the same guardrails in terms of security, in terms of what they have access to. You still have to build those because a lot of your resources, even if they are your employees, they're also remote. Don't really think about it as like you're losing control. Just think about where you will think about for any member of your team.
Luis, thank you very much for your time, for participation in the video podcast. Interesting experience. It was the first time when I spoke with a 20-year-old professor from the university. Yeah, really, thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Oleg.
If you enjoy our discussion and want to stay updated on future episodes, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. That way you will not miss out on the latest insights and conversations from the Devico Breakfast Bar. See you in the next episode.